Today's video is going to be all about the newest fragrances within my collection. And I have some new fragrance launches here too. So if you want to find out more, then please keep on watching. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's the first time you're visiting. Thank you so much for joining me today. As already mentioned in the intro, today's video is going to be all about the newest fragrances within my collection. And I have quite a few to share with you in this video, and a few of these are also new releases. So without further ado, let's get started on the first fragrance. And the first fragrance is Creed's newest launch, which is called Carmina. And I was invited to the launch party of this fragrance. But even before I was invited to the launch party, I was super excited about this launch because I feel like this is very different from the fragrances that Creed normally puts out for women. I have to say, Creed's feminine leaning lineup doesn't massively appeal to my tastes. I like Royal Princess Oud and I like some of the other fragrances, but they don't necessarily wow me. And Carmina has been the first fragrance that, upon looking at the notes, excited me the most. Now, you're probably thinking, I wonder what notes excited you. So this has a dark cherry note in here, and I'm not normally massively a fan of cherry, but it excited me because it also features saffron, pink pepper, and rose, which is a combination that we haven't seen enough of in my opinion. There is also a frankincense note in the base. So it sounded like it was going to be a very sexy, complex fragrance. So here I go, walking along to the event, and the first thing I do as soon as I enter is I take a quick beeline over to the fragrance. I wanted to sample it straight then and there. And I have to say, it really did take me by surprise. Now, on initial spray, to me, this almost smelt like a very typical rose oud combo. Now, there's no oud in here, but I was perceiving that kind of rose oud composition when I first smelt this. And I think it's because rose and saffron is quite traditional and quite popular. So I was, of course, getting that rose and that saffron composition front stage and center. But then that is when the cherry note started to appear, and it's definitely not a sweet juvenile cherry. It's a very sexy grown-up cherry note. The frankincense adds a really beautiful, almost smoky, woody quality, which again makes this a very sexy fragrance. I get a little bit of musk too, but I would say the most prominent notes are definitely the rose, the saffron, the cherry, and the frankincense. You definitely get rose and saffron front stage and center. Now, I've only worn this once thus far, so I need to gather my thoughts a little bit more before I do an in-depth review. But what I will say is it's definitely my favorite feminine leaning Creed fragrance. It's kind of a little bit vintage. It's got this familiar quality to it, but I love the addition of the cherry note, and I do really love the frankincense in here. So watch this space, more details to come, but do let me know if you've sampled Carmina and what you think of it if so. The next fragrance is another new release, and this one is called Wild Orange, and it's by Fragrance du Bois. This one took me by surprise a little bit because I wasn't expecting another release from Fragrance du Bois so soon. Lovers has only just launched, and yeah, this one just took me by surprise. Now, I've already reviewed Wild Orange on my Instagram page, and I feel like this is a very unique composition for Fragrance du Bois. They do not have anything like this within their collection. Now, how this smells, okay. You definitely get a lot of the orange in the opening. It's very zesty and very citrus dominant. However, this definitely becomes more of a green white floral composition. The orange blossom is front stage and center, but I also perceive a neroli note. And obviously orange blossom and neroli, they come from the same orange tree, but the neroli is a little bit more green. And I do perceive there to be like a neroli note within here because of that greenness. This has an almost zen-like spa quality. So the way I described it in my review is this reminded me of going to the most luxurious spa and the smell of almost aromatherapy oils, which normally use neroli. You normally get that kind of zesty citrus, maybe a bergamot, but in this case, mandarin orange. And then there is a really soft woody base to this fragrance. Very, very different from what we've seen from Fragrance du Bois thus far. When this dries down, I get an almost soapy quality from this. It's very fresh, it's very soapy, it's very uplifting. So if orange blossom and neroli is your thing, and you also like a freshness, you like citrus, and you like a light woodiness, then I would recommend that you sample Wild Orange. Now, I believe this is exclusive to Harvey Nichols at the moment. Harvey Nichols do ship worldwide, but I don't know how easy it will be to get a decant or sample of this. I will have a look and I will link something down below if I can find it. But yeah, Wild Orange is definitely a solid release from Fragrance du Bois. Like I said, quite different from what they normally do, but this is definitely a very zen, fresh and uplifting fragrance. Next up, we have a new release from Ex Nihilo, and it is Blue Talisman. Ex Nihilo is definitely one of my favorite niche houses. Some of my favorite fragrances in my collection come from Ex Nihilo. And this fragrance was to celebrate their 10-year anniversary, and the perfumer behind this was Jordi Fernandez. Now, I feel like so many people are going to love Blue Talisman. It is a very fresh fragrance. Again, it's very airy. They have an ambrofix note in here, which creates a pretty significant sillage. You've got a juicy pear note up top, and I perceive that pear to be a very realistic pear note. There's a little bit of bite from ginger. You have some mandarin up top too. But out of those notes, I definitely perceive the pear the most. There's some orange blossom, there's some akigala wood, and there's also some musk. Now, I've seen people comparing this to Vanille by Parfums de Marly, and I can see why people are saying that because of some of the notes in here, but I get such a different wearing experience from both of these fragrances. Vanille is very floral to me, very dominant in the orange blossom, whereas Blue Talisman for me, I perceive to be more of a fresh, juicy, slightly transparent, woody ambroxan fragrance. What I will say about Blue Talisman is, for me, this does a slight disappearing act on my skin. It almost becomes a skin scent, but interestingly, people can really smell this around me. It has a really, really beautiful sillage. Now, I believe that is coming from that ambrofix note, maybe the Georgie wood and the akigala wood, which is almost a similar experience to what Vanille does for other people. So I can see where people are going with that. But the composition of this is truly, truly beautiful. But I would urge you to try it first because it is a skin scent on me personally, and I wish it had better longevity. But I think the overall composition of Blue Talisman is beautifully, beautifully done. But I would just like it to have a little bit more strength. I would like to be able to smell it on myself. it's all well and good for other people to smell it and give me compliments, but I do wear my fragrances for me. Now, I know different people are having different experiences with this, so this is why I urge you to try it on your own skin. But I do think this is a really beautiful release, and I'm very, very impressed with Blue Talisman from a composition point of view. Another new release, this time it's from Floraiku, and this one is called Lightspeed. Now, this is another fragrance that has really taken me by surprise because it is quite different for the Floraiku lineup again. And I do love it when a brand surprises me and mixes up their DNA a little bit. The DNA of Floraiku is absolutely still here because they tend to use a lot of tea notes within their compositions, and Lightspeed keeps up with that tradition and features an Earl Grey tea note. But what made this really stand out to me is the fact that they've used oud in here, and the oud is so beautifully done. I can find oud quite challenging sometimes, and this is the smoothest oud experience I think I've ever had with a fragrance. Now, if you watch my channel, you will know that I normally gravitate towards quite fresh, clean, musky fragrances as my first preference. I love a tea note in fragrances. So the fact that they've combined that beautifully soft and aromatic Earl Grey note with an oud is a real experience. So yeah, overall, I think this is a really, really beautiful, wearable oud fragrance that would appeal to so many people that don't traditionally like oud. There's absolutely no skankiness here. Like I said, it's extremely smooth. This is an everyday fragrance. It's quite aromatic, yet it's fresh and light. And I'm very impressed thus far. Now, granted, I haven't had this fragrance for very long and I do need to play with it for a little bit longer. But Floraiku as a whole, the DNA is something I like about the brand. So I am pretty certain that I will continue to enjoy this fragrance, but I will update you in a future video to come. And I've said this multiple times, but I think the packaging is genius. You actually get a 10 ml travel atomizer with your purchase too, which you pop in this lid. You have a separate lid that you add on and you can pop it in your handbag. I just think that is so cool, very, very innovative, and it's another reason why I really love Floraiku as a brand. But please do let me know if you want to see a more in-depth review on Lightspeed. I will be happy to do so. But yeah, I'm just curious what you think about the notes within this fragrance, the bergamot, the Earl Grey, and the oud. The next new fragrance in my collection is from Goldfield and Banks, and this is Ingenious Ginger. And ginger is definitely one of my favorite notes in perfumery. So this one piqued my interest as soon as I saw it being released. I wasn't sure if I was going to love this or not because I've seen a few reviews and I feel like there are people that love it and there are people that don't care for it as much. But I do really, really enjoy this fragrance. It's not a full-blown love for me at this stage, but I really, really enjoy it. It has a very candied ginger quality to it. If you don't like ginger, you'd probably want to stay away from this because it has a lot of ginger in here. But it also has a lot of musk and it dries down predominantly to be a kind of spicy, aromatic ginger musky fragrance that has a really beautiful sillage. It's very fresh and uplifting. I think it's perfectly unisex. Now there's quite a lot of notes listed. You have magnolia, jasmine, rose, you have lemon, bergamot, you have mandarin. But really how I perceive Ingenious Ginger is a strong candied ginger note, but I also get a spicy dry ginger too. I get musk. I get an aromatic fresh kick too, which is probably from the bergamot. And I just think this is very, very gorgeous. Again, I need to spend some more time with this before I give a more rounded review. But my first impressions thus far are good. I don't know how much I will wear this moving into fall and winter, but in terms of a ginger fragrance, it's definitely one of the best in my collection. I'm so late to the game on this next fragrance, and it is none other than Divine Vanille by Essential Parfums. And I find this brand has exceptional quality fragrances at a more affordable price point. And when I say affordable, I'm talking affordable for the niche category, which is typically above £100. Now, Divine Vanille is a gorgeous, complex vanilla fragrance, perfect for the fall and the winter. You've got cinnamon and black pepper up top. There's some clary sage. You've got lots of vanilla and tonka bean in the base. There's some benzoin, there's some cedar, there's some patchouli, and there's some musk. And it's compared often to Parfum de Marly, Herod, and what is the other one? Angel Share. And whilst I see the similarities between Herod and Angel Share, I do think they still have subtle differences. Obviously, Divine Vanille is more affordable. So if you are a fan of those profiles, then yes, definitely check this out. But I do still feel like Divine Vanille deserves its own spotlight because this has a real sophistication to it. I find this less sweet than something like Angel Share, and this is a little bit more aromatic to my nose. Now, I need to do some more testing with this before I give a more rounded review. But yeah, this is so gorgeous, and it's definitely going to be a staple of mine for the fall and winter. But I need to play around with it a little bit more before I can review it in more detail. Next up, we have another new release, and this time it's from Carner, Barcelona, and this one is called Revolucion. And this is very much a leather dominant fragrance. So you have to be into your leathers to enjoy this one. But this is definitely quite a soft and sophisticated leather. It's not too sharp and scratchy at all. And I find this actually very wearable. Now, I don't think I will reach for this much myself. I feel like this is a little bit more masculine leaning, so it depends what you're into. But I know my husband will wear this a lot. You have orange blossom, thyme, and ozonic notes in the opening, which gives this a more fresh and soft quality. But then you have mate, violet, and saffron in the mid, and that saffron gives this a really gorgeous kind of spicy quality, and then the mate again makes this a little bit more soft and wearable. It takes the leather down from being too in your face and being more soft around the edges. I kind of get more of a suede note than a dominant leather. There's also a woodiness that happens in the base. I think this is a really beautifully done fragrance. Like I said, I won't be reaching for this much myself. I don't really wear this type of more masculine leather fragrance, but my husband will definitely be reaching for this. I think it's a very quality fragrance. So if leather is your thing, then I would check this one out because it is beautiful quality. And last, but by no means least, I have a fragrance from Jovoy, and this one is Gardez Moi, and it is the most beautiful, feminine, sophisticated floral fragrance. I don't have anything like this in my collection. It is super unique, and it just gives me the vibes of being on a date in a really beautiful pruned garden. Think Bridgerton vibes, think old money, think class and sophistication. This is exactly what you're gonna get from Gardez Moi. It has a slightly vintage vibe to it, but in the best way possible. It's slightly powdery, but at the same time, it's beautifully sweet. There's tons of florals in here, but I think what gives it the slightly vintage vibe is the aldehydes. There's also a tomato leaf in here, which gives an interesting green touch to it. There's a cyclamine note, there's ylang ylang, we got a little bit of mimosa too. There's gardenia, there's white lily, there's some musk in the base, there's a little bit of vanilla, and then there's a slight sweetness from the raspberry note. Very underrated fragrance. I don't think I've ever seen somebody speak about this one, and the notes just really stood out to me, which is why I needed to try it. And if you are looking for the ultimate feminine, pretty, date night, sophisticated, old money type of fragrance, then Gardez Moi would be the one for you. I will try find somewhere that samples this one and link it down below. But yeah, it just really stands out in my collection. It's a little bit different and has definitely just stood out to me. So Gardez Moi by Jovoy was the last fragrance that I wanted to talk about. So that was all of the fragrances that I wanted to showcase in today's video. Apologies, there was quite a few fragrances to get through. But like I mentioned, if you do want to see more in-depth reviews on any of these fragrances, please do let me know down in the comments below. But what I want to know is, what are the newest fragrances that you have added to your collection? Please drop that down in the comments below, because I have found some of my best recommendations through the comments section. And also, if any of these have stood out to you, or if you've sampled any of them and maybe not liked them, please do also let me know, because I'm super intrigued. But thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as always. I hope to see you in a future video to come. Thank you so much, and goodbye.